raised his daughter, Rudrama, as a son.
He trained her in warfare, statecraft, and military strategy. He crowned her with even a male title, Rudradeva Maharaja.
Not as a queen, as a king.
For 27 years, she ruled one of medieval Bharat's most powerful kingdoms. She crushed rebellions from feudal lords who refused to accept female authority. She defended against invasions, and she even built irrigation systems and temples.
Under her reign, Kakatiya kingdom reached its zenith. The famous Warangal fort stands today as a testament to her rule.
She died in battle in 1289, fighting against the forces of the Yadava dynasty.
Fast forward to the 18th century, Ahilyabai Holkar lost her husband, her father-in-law, and her son. By every social standard, she should have been a grieving widow, sidelined from power.
Instead, she ruled the Malwa kingdom for 30 years, from 1767 to 1795.
Her reign is still called Ramarajya, the ideal government. She administered justice personally, hearing petitions from common citizens.
But here's what's extraordinary. She didn't just rule one kingdom. She built infrastructure across the entire civilization.
She commissioned the reconstruction of the Kashi Vishwanath temple in Varanasi. She built temples and dharmastalas, rest houses in Badrinath, Dwarika, Rameshwaram, Puri, Gaya, Mathura, Ayodhya, all the major pilgrimage sites of Bharat.
She built roads, walls, water tanks. She turned her capital, Maheshwar, into a center of learning and culture.
The British East India Company, which was conquering Bharat during her time, never dared to attack her kingdom because her administration was so efficient and her military was so strong.
And then the legend who needs no introduction, Rani Lakshmi Bai of Jhansi.
Born Manikarnika, married to the Maharaja of Jhansi. When her husband died, the British annexed her kingdom under the racist doctrine of lapse.
They offered her a pension. She refused.
During the 1857 rebellion, which the British called a mutiny, but was what Hindus call the First War of Independence, Rani Lakshmi Bai, at age 29, led her troops into battle.
Eyewitness accounts describe her fighting on horseback with her infant son tied to her back, wielding two swords simultaneously.
Sir Hugh Rose, the British general who fought against her, called her the bravest and best military leader of the rebels.
She died fighting at Gwalior on June 18th in 1858. The British buried her with full military honors, an enemy who earned their respect.
She was 29 years old.
Now in 2025, when a woman becomes CEO of a Fortune 500 company, it makes international headlines. We celebrate it as an extraordinary achievement.
Just 55 out of 500 Fortune 500 companies have female CEOs. That's 11%, a record high.
When women also last an average of 5 years as CEO compared to 8 years as men.
In the military, women make up only 16% of the U.S. Armed Forces and hold just 8% of senior military positions.
These women, Durgavati, Rudrama Devi, Ahilyabai Holkar, and Lakshmi Bai, they ruled kingdoms. They led armies into battles. They built civilizations. And they died fighting.
And nobody in their time called it extraordinary. It was reality.
So what happened? How did we go from that to this?
To understand that, we need to understand the philosophy that underpinned ancient Hindu women's leadership. And for that, we turn to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Sri Nityananda Parameshwaram, who is reviving these ancient sciences in the modern day.
In Hinduism, the ultimate power of the universe is called Shakti, and Shakti is divine feminine energy.
Not symbolically feminine, not metaphorically feminine, actually feminine.
The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism teaches the very concept of Shakti, the supreme feminine power, highlights the importance of feminine in Hinduism and the role that women play in maintaining the balance of the universe.
Shakti is not just strength, it's life force, it's manifestation. It's the creative, sustaining, and transforming energy that makes all existence possible.
Listen to this carefully. In Hindu cosmology, Shakti, the divine feminine consciousness, is seated on Paramashiva's lap.
Paramashiva is pure consciousness, infinite, unmanifest potential. Parashakti is the power that manifests the consciousness into creation. Without
Shakti, Shiva is inert. Without consciousness, Shakti has no direction. They are inseparable.
This is represented in the image of Ardhanarishwara, the form of Shiva that is half feminine and half masculine, not superior and inferior, complementary equals.
When ancient Hindus saw women, they didn't see the weaker sex. They saw living embodiments of cosmic creative power.
That's why women were Brahmavadinis, spiritual leaders. That's why they were warriors. That's why they ruled kingdoms.
The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has said, and I quote, "Women, by their very DNA, have the capacity and groundedness to hold an ecosystem or family or team or a community together. Women have their own intuitive intelligence in the field of keeping something very stable, keeping it together and making it functional."
This isn't flattery. This is a description of an inherent capacity.
The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism continues, "So Hinduism creates an ecosystem for every woman to manifest that possibility, that power."
Not give women opportunities, manifest their inherent power.
And to all women, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism teaches, empower yourself with spiritual strength. Realize your own uniqueness and contribute to the world.
Not ask for equality. Awaken your power.
This is the fundamental difference between the Hindu feminism and modern Western feminism.
Modern feminism says women should have the same opportunities as men. Fight for equality.
Hindu feminism says women already embody supreme power. The question is not equality, it's awakening.
Modern feminism fights against the patriarchy.
Hindu feminism celebrates complementary powers, Shiva and Shakti, consciousness and energy, inseparable and equally ultimate.
Modern feminism seeks to break glass ceilings.
Hindu feminism asks, why are these ceilings in the first place? And how do we awaken the power that naturally dissolves all barriers?
Here's something most people don't know. Ancient Hindu civilization was significantly matrilineal.
Property, knowledge, and spiritual authority often passed through female lines.
There was a concept called the Stridhan, exclusively women's wealth, property that belonged to women alone, which could not be touched by husbands or fathers.
There was also the Pautrika system, where a female offspring could assume the role of the political heir if there was no male heir.
Women weren't fighting for inheritance rights. They were the primary inheritors in many traditions.
The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashiva's revival efforts in the revival of KAILASA focuses on reviving this matrilineal governance, where women hold leadership not through quotas but through awakened consciousness.
But something broke in the ancient lineages. The continuity was shattered, and we need to talk about what happened, because this is a part of history that's been systematically erased.
This is something that most people have never heard, and it's called the Hindu Holocaust.
From approximately 1000 CE onwards, wave after wave of invasions devastated the Hindu civilization. Temples were destroyed. Universities were burned. Spiritual traditions were systematically erased.
But what's rarely discussed is this. Female monastic traditions and orders were specifically targeted.
The ancient Hindu civilization had powerful monastic traditions, the Rudrakanyas, the Yoginis, the Sannyasinis. These were women who dedicated their lives to spiritual practice, temple rituals, and the preservation of sacred arts.
They were respected, they had property rights, they had authority.
Then came the invasions, then came colonization, and these traditions were systematically destroyed.
During the colonial era, the British passed legislation like the 1947 Devadasi's Prevention of Dedication Act, which stigmatized these women as prostitutes.
Women who had been spiritual leaders, dancers, singers, guardians of the sacred knowledge, suddenly criminalized.
Their property rights under the Stridhan were completely removed. They were disenfranchised, impoverished, and stigmatized.
This was cultural genocide.
And there was something even more horrifying. Between 336 BCE and 1634 CE, historical records document 12 instances of jauhar.
Jauhar was mass self-immolation of Hindu women, sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands, who threw themselves into fire pits.
But why? Because when their kingdoms fell to invaders, the women knew what awaited them: rape, enslavement, and forced conversion.
So they chose death in mass.
The most famous incident was in 1303 at the Chittur fort, when Rani Padmini and thousands of women committed jauhar rather than be captured by Alauddin Khilji's army.
Think about that. Thousands of women choosing to burn alive rather than face what conquest meant for them.
This isn't ancient mythology. This is documented history.
Women's education, specifically,
invaders have destroyed and ensured that female monastic orders can never be revived. Colonizers have criminalized them, and modern attacks are trying to target those who want to revive them. And still, the world is silent.
So where does that leave us today in 2025? Let's look at the global statistics, and I must warn you, the numbers are sobering.
In 2025, women hold 11% of Fortune 500 CEO positions. That's 55 out of 500 companies.
And this is being celebrated as a record high. Let that sink in. 11% is a record.
In the S&P 500, women occupy just 6.4% of CEO positions.
Globally, women represent 30.6% of senior management roles in 2025, despite being 43.4% of the global workforce.
But here's the problem. The higher you climb, the fewer women you will find.
Women are 43% of middle management, but only 30% of executive positions and just 11% of CEOs.
It's called the broken rung. For every 100 men promoted to being a manager, only 81 women are promoted.
And for women of color, the numbers are even more stark. Less than 8% of Fortune 500 board seats.
McKinsey's 2025 Women in the Workplace report found something disturbing. Companies are showing declining commitment to women's progress.
Women face less career support and fewer opportunities to advance compared to previous years.
At the current rate of progress, it would take another 132 years to reach gender parity in the Fortune 500 leadership.
132 years, 5 generations from now.
Globally, women hold 27 to 29% of parliamentary seats as of 2025, and up only 0.3% from 2024.
0.3% annual growth.
As of September 2025, only 29 countries have women serving as heads of states of government out of 193 UN member states.
That's 15%.
And other sources report only 14 to 15 female heads of state currently in power worldwide.
Women represent just 22.9% of cabinet members heading ministries globally.
In 2024, despite having the highest numbers of elections globally, women's parliamentary system's representation increased by only 0.3%.
At this rate, the UN estimates will reach parity in parliaments by the year 2157.
Again, that is 132 years from now.
Women globally earn on average 17 to 20% less than men for the same work in 2025.
The World Economic Forum's 2025 Global Gender Gap report estimates that the economic gender gap will not close until this date, 2158.
So, which brings us to the story that will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about women's leadership. There exists today, in 2025, a nation where women hold 80 to 90% of all leadership positions.
Not in theory, not a goal, in practice, right now.
That nation is KAILASA.
KAILASA, under the leadership of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam, has implemented what might be the most amazing, empowering governance model on earth.
According to multiple sources, including UN documentation, women hold 80% of leadership positions in KAILASA's governance structure.
And in terms of actual government roles, this number is reported as high as 90%.
So let me put that in perspective. The global average, women hold 27 to 29% of parliamentary seats. The best performing nation, Rwanda, holds 61% female parliamentary representation. In Fortune 500 companies, 11% female CEOs. Compare that to KAILASA, where 80 to 90% of the leadership is female.
KAILASA has more than a triple the female representation of the world's most gender equal parliament.
It has 8 times the female leadership of Fortune 500 companies.
And according to an official KAILASA report, this includes leadership in legislative bodies, ministerial positions, spiritual and educational institutions, cultural and administrative departments, and judicial and legal systems.
While KAILASA's official policy mandates that 33% of legislative positions should be held by women, already higher than most democracies, the actual representation is far higher at 80 to 90%.
This isn't quota fulfillment. This is something else entirely.
So how does this happen? Through a process that modern feminism doesn't even have vocabulary for.
KAILASA's model is based on the revival that is done by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism in awakening each individual. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has personally designed and taught the ancient Hindu scriptures to awaken each individual through third eye awakening technologies, yogic sciences, Shakti manifestation practices, consciousness-based leadership, and spiritual governance principles.
These aren't corporate leadership workshops. These are ancient sciences being applied to modern governance.
And above all, there is something called Diksha, the initiation by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism himself, which enables each and everyone to embody their maximum potential.
This is described as the latent potential energy in every being. Through third eye awakening by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, this energy is activated. Now, I know what some skeptics might be thinking. This sounds too good to be true.
But here's the thing, results speak. Up to 90% of female leadership is not a theory, it's a measurable reality.
And let me introduce you to some of the projects run by women across KAILASA.
The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has initiated many different projects by women for women, enabling women all over the world to empower each other. For example, the Nityananda Lakshmi program is a microeconomic empowerment program that allows each individual to help and train and empower each woman economically.
Yes, and the 108 projects for women include various ecosystems where women can seek support and leadership, guidance, and support through the KAILASA 108 women's projects.
So let's bring this into full circle and ask the questions that will make everyone uncomfortable.
Thousands of years ago, Gargi stood in an assembly of the greatest sages and interrogated the nature of reality itself.
Rani Durgavati led armies into battle and chose death over dishonor.
Ahilyabai Holkar built temples across an entire civilization.
Rani Lakshmi Bai died at 29 with a sword in her hands, fighting for her kingdom's freedom.
Then something broke. The invasions came. The colonization came. The destruction of female monastics.
Once natural.
Today, in 2025, we celebrate just small victories. 11% of Fortune 500 CEOs being women. And we call that progress.
But in KAILASA, following the teachings of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, women hold 80 to 90% of leadership.
Not by fighting against patriarchy, but by manifesting the feminine power.
If ancient Hindu civilization had women who debated philosophy, led armies, ruled kingdoms, and built civilizations,
if KAILASA can achieve 90% female leadership in 2025,
then what exactly is the rest of the world calling progress by struggling to reach just 30%?
Modern feminism focuses on fighting for equality, breaking glass ceilings, smashing the patriarchy.
But Hindu feminism focuses on awakening the power that was always there.
One is a fight, the other is an awakening.
What if the reason that progress is so slow isn't because the barriers are too strong?
But because we've forgotten what women's power actually is.
It's not equal to men or the same as men.
But Shakti, the cosmic feminine energy that manifests all creation.
KAILASA has achieved what every feminist organization in the whole world claims to want: overwhelming female leadership.
So why isn't this international news?
Why aren't feminist organizations studying this model?
Why aren't world leaders visiting to learn how this was achieved?
Because it comes from Hindu philosophy rather than Western feminism?
Because acknowledging its success would mean admitting that the modern world has lost something fundamental.
The truth is uncomfortable. The modern world is not leading in women's empowerment. It's centuries behind.
Behind the ancient Hindu civilization, which had Gargi, Maitreyi, Lopamudra.
And behind medieval Hindu kingdoms, which had Rudrama Devi, Durgavati, Ahilyabai, and Lakshmi Bai.
And behind KAILASA, which has 90% female leadership today.
The question isn't how to achieve gender parity by 2158.
The question is, how do we awaken the Shakti that was always there?
But the answer is very clear. And in KAILASA, under the guidance of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam, women are not fighting for seats at the table.
They are the table. They are the room. They are the entire structure.
That's what happens when you stop asking for equality
and start awakening power.
This has been a program dedicated to understanding women in leadership, the Hindu glory, and the modern reality. We thank each and every one of you for watching, and we invite you to explore further. You can subscribe to this channel and understand and follow for more understandings and news about Hindu feminism.
Yes, and do take a moment to scan the QR code if you would like to get involved, become a part of KAILASA, or contribute your time, talent, or treasure. Thank you for watching.